Waiting.
And I'm going to share my screen here.
I'm waiting for Caden's bus, then I'm going to go inside.
No problem.
School in action.
All right, just for purposes here, I'll call the curriculum committee for the Wellington BOE to order October 5th, 2021. It is 3:35 p.m. We have what we'll call a quick and fast agenda called to order, a strategic plan and curriculum presentation by Aaron Conley, and then adjournment. So I'm just going to really pass this off to Aaron. She has a lot to share. I will tell you, she's probably done months of work in a short period of time. So hopefully you'll be excited to see what she has here. And Aaron, you just want me to put up the 3-year strategic plan? Is that where you want me to start?
Sure. Yeah.
Perfect.
So so today really is about sharing the strategic plan and getting feedback, letting you guys weigh in. I'm going to go over kind of the main action steps, but you'll see generally the whole premise of the plan. This is a 3-year plan, so it spans from 21 to 2024. You'll see that it begins with the Wellingtons, because our beliefs and our goals need to guide all of our work. So you'll see that it begins with the Wellington Public School beliefs, followed by the goals that you created as the BOE. And then each goal has an objective. So I created an objective to align with each one of the BOE goals. Phil, can you just scroll up a smidge more? There you go. No, that's right. So you'll see the goal 1 around student growth and success. The objective is to increase student achievement for all students through a standards-driven, rigorous, relevant, and engaging curriculum. Each objective then breaks down into a task-oriented calendar, so to speak, where it has that each action to achieve that objective, the people or persons involved, the indicators of success, the resources needed, and then the due dates / I'll show you a calendar in just a second. So within the actions, scroll down a little bit, just to give you an idea of what each line you can read right across there. So that's the English language arts workshop line. So it's really broken down. You'll see the underlined portions. It's broken down into 4 sections. Everything's organized under curriculum, instruction, assessment, or systems. So all of the work really falls into one of those buckets. It's either curriculum related, instruction related, meaning the implementation of the curriculum, assessment related, or systems related. And so you'll see each, if it's whatever the underlying word, that action item falls under that bucket. There are indicators of success for each so that we know. And the note section I keep open so that you can see the updated progress. So for as things are happening within items, I will go in quarterly and usually update each quarter of where we are on each action item. So this is a living document. And we don't have to go scrolling item by item. You don't want to scroll item by item, do you, Phil?
That's up to the board. I mean, I would
Okay.
assume not. I mean, I think if they have a question about a specific thing here.
And I will go over the major points though, just so you can hear them all. So under curriculum, the major action steps are develop, revise, and publish written curriculum in all subject areas. The active steps in the plan are specifically laid out per subject area, but just so you know, each subject area has that curriculum aspect, the develop, revise, and publish. That includes ELA, math, science, social studies, art, music, PE, health, Spanish, and library media. Another action item under curriculum is develop project, place, and problem-based units that integrate all core subject area or integrate core subject areas and allow for authentic learning. Another action item under curriculum is audit and revise curriculum resources so they are reflective of the global community skills and competencies needed. And last under curriculum is integrate health and wellness into core curriculum. So you'll see, even though the action steps are more specific in the particular document you're looking at, generally fall into all of those action steps. Under instruction, we have they fall under create and implement a rollout of all subject areas revised curriculum. So you'll see there's action steps. So usually develop a curriculum and then it talks about the implementation. So can you scroll down there should be, or maybe up, oh, right there. So you'll see instruction. So the curriculum is to integrate phonemic awareness and phonics, and then the ELA is above that, but then you'll see the instruction is plan and implement the rollout. So thinking about how we're gonna roll this out and being strategic and intentional around that. Create and implement the PBL rollout is under instruction, roll out second step curriculum, which we already launched this year. And then lastly, under instruction, there's two parts to build capacity of educators through training and coaching. So any kind of professional development, training and coaching would fall under instruction, as well as coaching for teachers, specifically in ELA and math curriculum as we roll those out. So having coaching and that in the moment, in the classroom coaching embedded.
Aaron, just yell if you want to scroll up or down.
Sure. And next, under assessment, there's just two big items under assessment. One is complete the portrait of a graduate for grades 8, 5, and K. And then along with the measurement of competencies. And I know we are working with Great Schools Partnership with that, and there's other community members involved in that work. And then secondly, under assessment is audit and revise district-wide assessment calendars to include summative and formative assessments, as well as internal and external assessments. So as we build the curriculum, we're also looking at the assessment parts, really relying on a lot of formative assessment so that we can intentionally target our SRBI and in the moment strategies and catch kids earlier. And then lastly, under systems, there's 4 major kind of action items. One is connect second step curriculum with behavior supports. So really connecting all the dots of PBIS, responsive classroom, restorative practices, and portrait of graduate skills. 2 is develop a plan for assessing progress towards second step skills and competencies. 3 is integrate health and wellness activities for students and staff. And 4 is to review and revise the SRBI, including data team and intervention processes and documentation. So we've already been working, a lot of this, some of this we've already actually started the work on, but those are the 4 buckets and the major action items under each. I'll pause for a minute and ask if any has any questions on that aspect. And I'll show you the calendar in just a second. Just any questions on the action steps or the plan itself.
Does it make sense?
That I just say that sounds good. And I mean, I went through it earlier. Obviously, well, not obviously, but I mostly just looked at the actions because I looked at what the other columns were and said, right now, what are the actions? And the way you just explained it into the 4 buckets makes it very easy to now have a framework that it makes like to put this information into.
Good, thanks. All right, and so the calendar, so I wanted to give you a really clear, easy, clean calendar in terms of what the timeline looks like. You should, yeah.
Is it this one?
Is it, nope, not that one, that one. So you'll see, again, visual calendar on timing. So if it's up through the green, it means it's in development, it's being written. The red is when it'll be put forth to the Board of Education for adoption, of course, with some flex time, depending on how things are going. But and then the yellow is the implementation of those core curriculums. So you'll see that, really this year, a bulk of this year is ELA. The second half of the year is math. With the hopes of having both adopted late August for a rollout for year 2. And then the year 2, a lot of the focus you'll see is science, elementary, middle school science, social studies, and then unified arts starts to get developed towards the end of last year. And the third year really will focus on that, again, finishing the unified arts curriculums and bringing in the project-based learning. I have broached with, we are talking to Unified Arts, and they're actually, so far, everyone I've talked to is very excited around Unified Arts being trained in project-based, the PBL, project-based and problem-based learning, because they are natural points of integration. So they'll be the experts on staff when we get to year 3. So they'll be starting that training towards the end of this year, build their capacity, and that also builds the systems capacity so that you have those experts built into your schools to support the general education teachers. And that's those are the focus for the last year. I'm ready for questions and comments.
Scroll down a touch here.
Okay, it just took me a little bit to orient to this graph. This we didn't get, right? I didn't see this.
What was the second thing I sent you? Was it this?
No, it's the chart.
This.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
It's
I
okay.
did this-
I've oriented now. We're starting, today is at the bottom.
Yeah.
Going up to July of 2024. Okay, now it's
Yeah.
making sense to me.
Yeah, I tried to do it the other way, but the page wasn't long enough. So I had to, yeah, the X and Y axes got switched.
Okay.
But this was just to make it simpler and cleaner, so you could just see the dates. I know the other calendar kind of had a lot of more information in it. It's more my planning document.
Yeah, and so this group has talked, Aaron, just so, and I think I've talked to you about this. This group has talked about calendars like this before. And we talked about being aggressive and how challenging it was to be aggressive in the mode we were in. And now with Aaron here full-time for, what we hope will be 3 years that she stays with us, you can see that we are going to be moving much faster as far as approving curriculum than the calendar I think you initially saw, simply because we had people that were doing their other jobs trying to write. So this is, I think, more aggressive. But again, the work that she's done already, I mean, just taking her calendar here and looking at her working document here of what this is going to look like and how we go through these things is pretty significant. And we're actually taking a similar approach to, and you're going to hear this at the board meeting too, is with professional development. We're taking a similar approach, knowing that as we roll some of these things out, people are going to need training, and they're going to need, whether it's about PBL or it's just new units or whatever it is, that'll be part of the long-term 3-year professional learning opportunities for staff as well. Do you want me to go back to her original document? I'm not sure. Oh, and you're muted. I can see your mouth moving, but oh, let me see if I can. You shouldn't have to unmute. There we go. That's weird.
Okay. I would love to go through the other calendar, the charted calendar. If that would be okay, Erin?
Absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, I kind of got overwhelmed by the other stuff. And I think this might make really good sense to me, so.
Yep. So we can go kind of, yeah, this is, again, this was my first planning document. So yeah, it probably is the most like simple because I built out from there. But you can see kind of what the focus is for each month and the timeline. I will say that currently the planning of ELA, we are looking at possibly not getting 2 units done by January, but we will have 1 reading and writing. So it will be 2, it just won't be 2 reading and 2 writing. But we'll make up for that in the summer. So that's one thing as we're living it. But as I'm looking at those numbers there, but everything else looks like it's fitting.
And sorry, there's moving parts in this. That's the thing to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna say, I'm not surprised at all. That looked incredibly ambitious to me.
Yeah.
So.
So, Ann, did
Yeah.
you have specific questions about this? I think Aaron's point to this was, we're trying to match the professional development timing wise to the curriculum work that's being done. But the idea here is that we have some sort of layout of how we're going to make all the curriculum improvements and get them approved by the board. And there's also time while she's here that we're going to have feedback on those things along that process too. So, you know, that just because it's approved by the board doesn't mean it's, again, a final curriculum for ELA, because it's first. But we'll continue to cycle through it.
No, I think it looks great.
Thanks, and I will, sorry, go ahead.
You've kind of captured the beast, this huge, and you've really departmentalized it and structured it and made it into a very doable plan, which is huge. So thank you for that. You know, even if you don't stay to it day by day, it's well organized, and I think it should, you know, really lead to some good results.
Thanks. Yeah, I was going to say, so, and actually that's a great segue. So I'm going to say an update on kind of where we are at. So for ELA, teachers have all started letters last week. So letters training is launched. So this is the second week of letters training for the teachers. We have gotten through kindergarten. I'm just about to start 4th grade planning documents for ELA. So what we're doing is we're laying it out, walking through all of the TC stuff to figure out kind of really like where does it overlap, what can we get rid of to embed the science of research. So trying to find those components.
TC being Teachers College.
Oh yeah, sorry, Teachers College. I'm sorry. Phil will stop me. They told me I'm the queen of acronyms. So if I start using letters.
Yeah.
Education is bad to begin with, right? And then when you get into your own little area, yeah.
Yes.
Now, I've been out of it for 10 years, so I don't know the acronym letters. Is that the science-based reading?
So science of reading is what we're trying to embed. The Teachers College is the workshop model. So Teachers College is more a whole language, and science of reading is a little bit more of like phonics based and direct instruction around phonics. So we're really combining the two
Nice.
to really get the best of both worlds.
That's well, good.
So that's what we're going through the planning documents to try to figure out those natural points of integration before writing the actual units. And so that's where we are in ELA, and that's what we've been working on. And that's basically been the crux of everything recently after this planning document.
And the letters is the language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling. That's what the letters acronym is.
I actually didn't know what that stood for, so thanks. I mean, I did, but I forgot. And letters is the science of reading training.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the biggest outside curricular resources, and again, just wanted to kind of put it out there, is one of the biggest, I think, budgetary items will be, I am requesting for the rollout of the math curriculum next year, a full-time math instructional coach, to ensure that implementation and the support is there for the teachers to make sure that goes, smoothly, and that they have the support they need. So that's just to kind of put it out there, that's one of the bigger budgetary items in the plan.
Okay, so yeah, so you just segued to what I was waiting for from ELA to math. I was curious, like, I know with the ELA, one of the things that you're really trying to embed that has been missing has been the science of reading with the letters. The math curriculum, how much is it going to be different from what was in place? Like, how much of a change is happening with math?
So we are trying to adopt IM, move more towards IM, so that we have as our main curricular resource, not as our curriculum, but as our main curricular resource. And IM being, I was getting there.
Math?
Yeah, illustrative math. So it's
illustrative math. Oh, I was thinking it was integrated. Oh well. Let's try.
So it's what 6 through 8 currently is using. So that means it'll be going from will be fully K-8 using the same major curricular resource. But Erica has created some amazing stuff from so we are really, I like to use the word bounded autonomy. So we're really looking at using IM as the illustrative math as the major curricular resource, but really providing, so let's say it's on fractions, you know, there's the IM activity, but Erica has some other grades. So there's going to be choice for the teacher, knowing the kids, so there'll be like multiple activities as an option. So again, there's that bounded autonomy within the math. So it also provides, we know that illustrative math is scientifically researched, so we know that it spirals. And so we are going to really combine the two, but with the focus of having that option and that bounded autonomy within the math units.
And IM did not exist at that lower level. It was only 6 through 8, I think, when we adopted. So that's why we had to create other, pieces. So
Yep.
now it will be a blend. And obviously the IM has to be approved by the board if we're going to take those books.
So another question there, 6 through 8, were they using IM then, or is this going to be new for them too?
Nope, they are currently using it.
Okay, because I had a question about math. 6 through 8 didn't come up until May of this year. And so I was wondering, is the curriculum they're already using changing much? And it sounds like it's not, which is
Correct.
what that placement in May kind of was signifying to me. So I'm glad to see that's what it is.
Correct.
Okay.
And it's actually why I went and looked into the K-5, because when I did my curriculum interviews in the beginning with all the grade levels in the beginning of the year, the one thing I heard loud and clear from grades 6, 7, and 8 really was they love the IM program. So I was unanimous. So I kind of said, well, they're loving it. Let's look what for the other grades. So
Okay, that sounds good.
Will they continue to use the workshop model along with the illustrative math and the other? So
yeah, and illustrative math is also inquiry based, so it does have that inquiry component built in as well.
okay, and that lends itself well to the math model, the math workshop model.
And PBL and the project based learning as well.
Oh, okay.
It actually is it will seamlessly integrate into all of those.
Cool.
I got to tell you, I was thrilled to see the project-based learning in there. That just spoke to my heart.
Yeah, that's where it becomes relevant and authentic too.
Yeah. So that and also the NGSX training for the science teachers and the use of the open SciEd units, which I think are really good. So
yeah, actually NGSX is just about to release an elementary curriculum writing series. So we talked about that pathway as well potentially. So
nice.
And I need to compliment the second steps program. I have a 2nd grade grandson, and we've learned that it's okay to make a mistake. And when you miss a mistake, you just try again. And yeah, and when someone speaks like a volcano. So I'm seeing it's really a wonderful program. I can see it at this end.
I love it. My favorite part has been walking into the elementary rooms when I'm there and seeing the goal setting. The kid, like, they're really holding themselves accountable to their goals. They're changing. I mean, even down to like the lower grades. I've seen it in like 1st grade. So that's been super exciting.
Mm-hmm. That is good.
I think the idea here, and that's just one example, Anne, is that we're looking for consistency pre-K to 8.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one curriculum that we have the consistency now because it was purchased. And long-term being 3 years here, that we have that consistency for science, social studies, ELA, math, all of the areas. So we can see the scope and sequence and people know what program is being used, what's out there for curriculum, what those resources are. Because right now it's kind of a little bit of hodgepodge.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one more update too. We are meeting with curriculum stipend staff, so the curriculum coordinator positions. We are in the process of choosing and putting together a district-wide template for all curriculum that we'll propose to the board as well. So run through, you guys work through this group as well. So that's another thing we're working on.
And Aaron, do you want to speak to just generally what that framework looks like? Just this group knows they've seen samples. I think they liked what they saw overall from both pieces, and how you'll use that to move into some consistent form.
Yep. So actually, those are the crux of what we're using. It's the understanding by design. So where you have the standards and the question, students will, the skills and concepts. What we're really going into, it's going to look very similar to probably what you're seeing. What we're talking about right now is well, science is a little bit of a different because it's storylined. So it's so we're trying to figure out how to fit the science model into a template. And we're also working on, do we want to say students will know, or do we want to say, students will be able to, or do we want to say skills and concepts? So we're just working out some language components, but it'll look very similar to what you guys have already approved in terms of sections. Because what we did notice was math and ELA looked very similar in terms of what's included. It really is more around the language and then trying to figure out science.
Science has always been different.
Yeah. Yeah.
Did you have any other questions about her strategic plan, about the calendar, about the approach, kind of where she's at? There's a lot of information there.
It is a lot of information, but it is, I like, the 4 buckets, the way you've organized that, including the systems as well. And the emphasis on not just writing curriculum, but professional development and implementation. A lot of people don't realize it's not just curriculum, it's knowing how to use that curriculum in instruction. So that emphasis there is really important for us to make everybody else understand.
Yeah, and you'll notice in the plan, thank you, and you'll notice in the plan that this isn't all just my work, right? This does really embed district-wide, so that, because you're absolutely right? They're all connected.
So if, Tracy, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No, I was just my brain is not working well today, but I think that's a flu shot. Repercussions. No, thank you for all that you've done so far. You've done a tremendous amount of work already. And I appreciate that. I haven't had a chance to really study the documents that you shared, but it looks great. And I can't wait to see it, coming forward. And the only question I have, and this is something I'm just going to bring it up because Phil knows this is one of my things. My children both were subject to having to deal with this because years ago, around the time that Laura was at Hall School, they were took away by, I think by attrition, to individuals that made it so that we only have science for 2 quarters of the year and social studies for 2 quarters of the year. And I'm just wondering, I know you haven't gotten to science yet, but if there's any thinking about trying to change that, because I'm not sure curriculum wise how it affects how much the kids get, but I do know that when they get to high school, if they haven't had science for 6 months or they haven't had social studies for 6 months, but especially science, it's really hard to jump into even the basic class that starts for freshmen. But if you jump right into biology, you're kind of at a disadvantage because it's been 6 months since you've really done any science. And I know that's a budget issue, but I think it's a big thing for our kids.
Yeah, and that's something, so systems wide, and I know that's come up with the stipend and staff too, especially both science and social studies, because they both say, we only have half a year. So it's something that we haven't gone more than just kind of putting it on the table. So as we get closer, we can certainly look at that and see if there's any creative solutions and scheduling and different avenues to explore.
And things may change as the building committee does their work and we decide what we're going to do or not do. But I know that we filled the room with 50 people a few years ago when they were threatening to take away some more subject, areas and making, it was, people don't talk about it a lot, but it's out there that it's a problem.
Yeah, we did talk, I did talk to the science person because this was something that came up, and we did talk about the science practices are very cross-cutting. So like you can bring the science practices into math, you can bring the science practices easily embed into project-based learning. So, even if they only get 6 months, if there is no creative solution and there's 6 months of content, but they're still getting the practices and cross-cutting concepts in other areas, that might be another creative way to kind of target some of those as well.
That sounds good.
Erin,
Yeah.
is there, sorry, I just want to piggyback on that. Just something to think about as we work, Erin, is there a way as you develop or identify curriculum so that we know we're not weeding things out? Like if we blatantly see gaps, or a great answer would be we don't see gaps, and it's actually even though we only have science and social study for a certain period of time, they're actually getting just as much content because the number of minutes, and within the number of minutes we're providing what other people are doing. I don't know that answer, but I'd be curious to know if we are looking at other districts time wise. Honestly, I don't care about other districts as much as are we able to cover the content for those areas, and between the integration, and it's got to be known, like this has to be done here or we miss it, right? Or do we see gaps? Are we really missing something, and should we be making a recommendation, which is what Tracy's getting at, I think. But I'd like to study that more just to see what are we missing, because it's the standards are there. Sorry.
I agree with Tracy, and that's something I've heard around the community, parents commenting on recently. When are the kids taking their science tests? Would that be some data that would help to inform that?
And certainly, in terms of where their achievement and performance is on it, yeah, that would definitely, they can break it down. Or I don't know if you guys, I don't think this district has done that. I don't even know what IAB stands for, but it's the short Connecticut. So it's the practice state testing. So there's small chunks of the state test, and they have science ones. So that actually could be, if we embedded, those would be perfect data to see what they're getting, what they're not getting. That even breaks down into the three different aspects of NGSS. But yeah, so we could go deeper into that also.
So
Probably a good to compare the standards with the curriculum and just be sure that, that all of them are embedded in the curriculum.
So just to definitely weigh in on this, and thank you for Tracy for bringing this up, because you said it's a pet peeve of yours. It was a huge pet peeve of mine that in 7th and 8th grade, students are getting half as much science and social studies content than they are English, ELA, and math, where I truly feel as students are getting older, they need more of content about both the natural world and the social world, which are what those two subjects are about. I was the one who went through that when they cut a science teacher and a social studies teacher, and I went from 7th grade to 7th and 8th grade and half as much time. And I'm sorry, but there's no way around it that you are not teaching as much science in half as much time. And it is not the same to integrate in math or ELA. Math and ELA honestly should be more integrated into science and social studies, because using that content and then the skills from ELA and math. So I really think that was a real mistake that happened way back then, and it was through projected attrition that honestly the 4 years I was there doing both grades, the numbers did not go down like they said. They did, they did get smaller, but if we could somehow change to a model where ELA, math, science, and social studies are equal subjects with equal amounts of time, I truly think that would be better for our students. So thank you, Tracy, for bringing that up. It's something I think I've buried because I have a lot of emotions about it. But when you look at it, just from the educational piece, I do think our kids are missing out with having half as much time in 7th and 8th grade. And I don't know if it's changed if 5th and 6th are doing that model also. They were not when I was there.
Yeah.
You know, they were getting more science and social studies in 5th and 6th grade than they were getting in 7th and 8th.
I believe 5th and 6th are the same now. I believe they all have half years of both, or 6 months.
Okay,
of-
so it's
yeah.
so it's switched down to the lower grades too. So they're now getting half as much as they should in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And, you know, we're not creating scientifically literate children if they're only getting half of what they should. You just can't cram a whole year into a half a year.
I agree with that. I mean, at minimum, we would have to prioritize and figure, yeah, it would definitely not be all of it. We'd have to prioritize and be very intentional, but I would agree with that. There's no way to do it all in half the time.
And I
Right.
also, feel if we're integrating it into language arts and math, which it should be happening all the time in everything, but don't they have a full curriculum too? So if science is moving into, I know that they can be integrated easily, but you know, I just agree that they need to be full-time, you know, at all 4 grade levels. Or Tracy, I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
Oh, no, that's okay. It's hard on Zoom. Yeah, and I just, and I know that I'm preaching to the choir here, but at the time that this happened, I think it was important, and I wasn't even a part of watching board meetings at that point, but it's been, once I found out about it, when my kids got to that level, it bothered me as a parent and an educator. But now we have even more stringent standards. We didn't have NGSS at that, or, you know, at the time. The curriculum has changed. We weren't using Common Core. 10 years
Yeah,
ago.
we were
just starting,
in
but
Common Core.
it was, you know, we weren't as, everything is more intense now, I feel like. And so it might be a way. I mean, you'd sell me in a second. If you said we're adding a science teacher, I'd be voting yes in a second, and a social studies teacher. So convincing the rest of the community, but by using some of these kinds of things, maybe we can, and maybe our district will change so that we can accommodate that as well.
We could also check with D.O. Smith too and see what our kids look like next to the kids from Mansfield and Ashford in terms of preparation. That'd be one more point of data.
Mhm. Data-driven decision-making.
I just wanted to put that out there because you're at the beginning, so I think it's a time to say it.
No,
But
it's a
everything
very-
else you're doing is great.
yeah, this is a very good time for it because, you know, we're just coming up on budget time. You know, that's going to be in the next few months. And, you know, as we develop the curriculum, we need to know how many people are necessary to teach it.
So I hear you.
Sorry, Phil.
You also all need to remember that time comes from something. And so there's a full schedule already. And so it comes from something, and you're not talking about 2 people, you're talking about 4. When you start adding full-time people, you're adding $400,000. If you're at someone with a master's degree or higher top step plus insurance benefits, we're not talking about small dollars. So I have the same belief that you have, and I support it. There are significant scheduling implications, and something has to give when you do that. And you don't want to pull from things that, and I'm not prioritizing one higher than the other. I think we've worked within what we've we've been a lot, you know, the board's been given as far as finances go and what we can do, but it's something that I think you have to have the data to make a decision like that. You have to have the data to say, you know, our science scores are significantly lower, and I'm only using science because it's tested. Science scores are significantly lower than state average or than EO Smith, or compared to the kids that are going into EO Smith. I think when you start looking at that data, I think I would want to know how much are we really paring down curriculum wise and expecting now that we're jamming other things into ELA and math. I think we need to identify, those are the things we need to identify as curriculum is done. And it is the right time to do it, but we also have to have the dose of reality to go, you know, what if you're proposing something like that as a result of a rewrite of curriculum, what is the implication across other content areas, and what's the financial implication? So again, I agree with you, but it's a big jump. Any other thoughts on her initial plan? Aaron, I think the only thing I wanted to ask, if nobody has a quick question, was, you know, can you just speak to the assessment portion of it right now? Because I think the board is going to hear this. I know the board is going to hear this on Tuesday night for your board meeting next week. We're doing our data rollout. We're going to give you all the data that we have, SBAC, iReady, climate surveys. We're going to talk about the administrative goals. Erin's going to do a recap of her curriculum and drive here for the entire board. One of the things that we've talked about and we need to do a better job in district is identifying what assessments actually, how we value assessment here, and what we're looking at as how are we being successful. Because I will say till I'm blue in the face, SBAC is one measure, and it doesn't mean just because you are a 1, 2, 3, or 4 on SBAC how you're going to do moving forward in life. And so we need to identify those things. From the time I was a principal to the time I'm superintendent here, a lot of the new information, new data, new research that we received, our assessments have changed drastically. And I just want Erin to capture some of the assessment work that needs to be done as this curriculum work is done as well.
So there's two aspects to that. There's the academic, and then there's kind of those skills and competencies, right? And there is some overlap, but you'll see in the plan, that's like, I've kind of put them under those two buckets. And assessment wise, academically, you know, we're looking at, you know, for big picture, obviously SBAC and our benchmarks, which we use iReady. Both of those kind of give us those snapshots of the district and or school. But the biggest shift in assessment that's happened, I'd say over the last 5 years, is really that formative component. So really, you know, that looks more like exit tickets, or, you know, at the end of a lesson, really checking for checks for understanding. So in the moment you can see, did the kids get the lesson objectives? Did they get these skill sets? And then using those formative assessments to very quickly turn around this data-driven instruction, right? To really quickly turn around targeted interventions and targeted reteaches, so that we're catching the kids early on, before it becomes these larger gaps that we see really playing out in the larger district-wide and statewide assessments. And then the other aspect I would say in the measurement and assessment that you'll see in the plan are, how do we measure, as we identify portrait or graduate skills and competencies, how do we measure those? Like, I would assume it's going to be like developing a rubric, or, you know, but thinking about how do we measure those skill sets, and very similarly second step. So second step, you know, has specific skills and competencies in it as well. And how do those align to PBS, and how do we measure those skill sets, which I see the portrait of a graduate embedding those so that it's one, but really looking at, you know, how do we measure the competency and skills that we're saying that the kids are going to leave here with. So kind of I would put it in those two areas for assessment. Does that kind of capture what you were saying, Phil?
Yeah, I think that, you know, knowing that some of that formative assessment is going to be built into, you know, into the curriculum, where, again, it's an important piece of the puzzle that is a little bit of hodgepodge right now.
Mhm. Which also then goes to the intervention and SRBI system, right? Like that data is truly then with telling us, let's catch them early. And if that early catch doesn't work and the progress monitoring data is showing us this isn't working, then, really giving them that extra support. That intentional approach should flip our triangle. So so we should really have a better, what we call tier 1 core curriculum. We should see less kids needing that severe intervention, or more intensive intervention, and more kids getting those quick gap fillers, like those formative assessment catching them earlier.
So beyond the science social studies half-year feedback, and Aaron, that might be something you build into your plan as far as, we can do some research and get some more information, especially as you build. I think that's going to be important to share with this committee. I think we need to actually put that into writing. That's part of what needs to be evaluated as we're writing curriculum here. Building that into your strategic plan, because I think we heard 3 people say that that's important to them. And so I think if we build that in, as far as next steps go, I think for you wanted to be able to share out the kind of model layout of what she's doing, or what curriculum, what it's going to look like in a package. Do you expect to do that as you present the first units, the first plan, or are you wanting to do that before?
So my goal is, as I develop the unit, as I have units developed, to bring it here for feedback, not waiting.
I'm just thinking about the layout though, because
The template.
yeah, the template.
When's our next meeting?
And that's what I'm saying, because I'm trying to think about just time frame for you in general here, but also time frame in your big picture of your, the work you're trying to accomplish. What are the next steps? And that was something I heard as a next step, was to share that template with this group. What are the other next steps, and how long before you could want to see this group again to review that template? Is it just to review the template and then to write, or is this group going to say, hey, we trust the template's going to be reasonable and similar to what we've seen, and you're going to provide kind of the first units at the same time? Does that make sense?
Yep. So my thought, actually, so we should have a template on Tuesday. We're meeting to review that. So I could actually just send the template to this group via email, so everyone can kind of weigh in, that way. And then so the next meeting would really be once we have a unit to go over and get feedback on a unit.
So is that okay with the group? Anne's shaking her head. I think if that's okay with Laura, Tracy, and Anne, then you can just provide feedback back to Aaron via email, and then the next meeting would be actually content in that particular layout, if that makes sense.
That sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good.
I agree.
Any other next steps that you want to see as committee members that you may not see right now?
No.
Looks
Looks
like the logical next step.
Let's all hope we can. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Laura.
I'm just going to say the portrait of a graduate is something you guys were talking about and doing before I came on the board. And is there someplace I can access that?
No.
Or could you send me something to, because I've always felt a little bit in the dark as far as what that's all about.
The whole board is in the dark right now. So
Okay.
we actually met yesterday, and that's one of the things that Great School Partnership is coming on board to help us finish this year. And so, and Aaron was talking about the skills that we kind of expect as part of our portrait of the graduate, and how it aligns to E.O. Smith in particular, and what those traits are that we have, and what those traits look like at Q. She said, I don't remember the grade levels you said, Aaron, but we've talked about K2, 4, 6, 8. We've talked about every grade level. We've talked about, kind of checkpoints, the elementary checkpoint, middle school checkpoint, meeting what skills, what do we expect students to be able to do by the time they leave hall school regarding communication, effective communication. So the group was getting ready literally to defend their 4 traits internally, Laura, and then COVID hit. And so everything stopped. And so we just picked up yesterday for a brief meeting to have a conversation about where we left off. I have a meeting Thursday with Great School Partnership, and we're finalizing kind of our kickoff, what it's going to look like with our group. And then what will happen is once we can defend it internally, it will then come to some board members to defend that, so we can defend to board members. And then it will go, once we have that done, it'll go out to the full group, full board members. So it's a work in progress, and just another COVID slowdown for us, unfortunately.
So what are the 4 areas? You mentioned there's 4 areas: communication, or
I don't
do you
want to tell you.
surprise?
You said communication, so we've got one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's going to be one of them. And you could look at Region 19s. And the reason I don't want to tell you is because they may change.
Okay.
And
So
so
you
when we
need to decide what they will be. Your
Say that again?
committee, your committee needs to make that decision what they will be. Okay.
the committee spent, and I'm going to say weeks pulling together what we thought were, not having 15 different things, because it's too much, pulling together 4 or 5 traits that we thought kind of embodied what we were looking for, and everything fell under those things. So, and I'll give you an example of, if someone said one of the traits we were looking for was effective communication, and then they started talking about positive relationships. How are those integrated? And is one stronger than the other? And so we wanted to make sure that part of the defense, and I say defense just meaning as we present this to staff internally, are we clear about what we expect and why we are saying those 5 traits, or are they changing our mind and as we rethink this? And so that's why I don't want to say it, because it really is, they need to defend it first.
Mhm. And will you be dovetailing it with Region 19? Are you kind of talking to them also?
So they are ahead of us. Mansfield's ahead of us. They had done it previously. I don't know that Mansfield kind of led it into E.O. Smith's, but we had that committee, the district steering committee, looked at the E.O. Smith plan, and we pulled it apart. We put it back together. What do we? How do we think ours would flow into that? And the idea is that we are a bridge. That we have a bridge. So what they've developed is going to, you can just walk back a step and go, we can see the alignment to Willington. So yes,
Yeah.
it's there. We looked at a lot of portrait of a graduate plans, let me tell you. And then the idea was to pick to battle and figure out what do we really want our kids to do. And again, this is all curriculum related, because it's got to be built into our units. And that's, again, Erin has expertise in portrait of the graduate. Another thing that was made her shine for us. And so she knows how that's going to lead into, that it's not a separate island. And this is the problem we see right now in Willington, is that the islands of, okay, so portrait of the graduate, does that mean it's going to be another class that's 30 minutes? No, that's not the idea here. And that it's infused in what we're doing. So we're very aware of that, and that we're, time is sacred. So. Makes sense?
Thank you. Yep.
You're welcome.
It-
Sorry not to give it away.
No, it's okay. Is there a town meeting tonight? Is that tonight?
It is.
Okay. I
And-
haven't seen it out. I haven't seen it advertised much. It
Oh, it's out
didn't,
there, yeah.
book was down yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else as far as Erin's plan that you have questions about? And again, Erin, you can send out your template when you're ready and just get some feedback back to her. And Erin.
Also, as you guys digest and all of the calendar and strategic plan, and if anything arises, you guys feel free to reach out, call me, email me. Any suggestions, please, feel free to reach out, provide some suggestions, any of that, but
Can
Aaron,
we-
how long before you think this group will meet again before you'll be sharing a first round of curriculum?
hold on, I actually drew out, this is my calendar. Now that I've been doing the planning documents, I'm trying to figure out, I was like, oh, I have an idea of timing now. So hold on, so I'm looking at, we're on October 1st. I'm like, end of the month, I should have like 3 to 4, probably 3 to 4 weeks, probably 4 weeks. Where I should have like and it'll be probably the first set of units, reading and writing, that we're gonna look at, because I'd like to get feedback before we go any further than the first unit.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And so does this committee want to see those when you're ready to push them out? Do you want to see them first and have time to digest them? Or do you want to have her present them at the meeting? And I'll tell you my take on it. If she presents them at the meeting and it's not clear because it's the first time you're seeing something, then we have a problem. It should be clear the first time you see something, because any new teacher coming in, and you're all in the teaching world here, if you can't pick that up, and as she presents it, I would prefer to do it that way. The reason is, if you have time to pick it apart, I think it's
Not clear enough.
it's not
Yep.
clear enough.
It sounds good. It's less prep work for us.
Okay, so Aaron, you have your marching orders, and we'll look about 4 weeks out, maybe first week in November.
Mhm.
All right, any other comments from the agenda?
Thank you, Erin. You're doing an
Thank
amazing
you.
Tracy, did you have a
acting
comment?
principal.
Just two things. One was, can we, I know it's a living document, but could we have a copy of the one with the yellow, red and greens?
Yeah.
Just so that we could compare, have that sort of a vision, but know that it could change.
Mhm.
And then the second point was, with the election on November 2nd, I would love to say that the three of us are going to be back here. But
Do not know.
Maybe not.
reality says that we have to.
Yep.
We can't count on that for sure. So the committee could change by the time we come back to you. I hope it doesn't.
Well, just remember that we're moving in a direction that's very, we have a target.
Yeah, I'm just saying it might be
and-
different people that you're seeing
Yeah.
here.
Fair enough.
I hope not.
Fair enough. Okay. All right, if there's nothing else, it is 4:33. And I'll say, unless there's something else,
All right.
I will stop the recording and we can adjourn 4:33.